The rain came down in quiet sheets, blurring the windshield of the old blue pickup as Daniel tightened his grip on the steering wheel. His hands were rough, oil-stained, and tired. He was used to engines that refused to start, brakes that screamed for mercy, and customers who demanded miracles on a budget. But nothing in his life as a single dad and small-town mechanic had prepared him for the woman now sitting in the passenger seat of his truck, sobbing quietly into a silk handkerchief. Her name was Evelyn Hart, though Daniel had only learned that much a few minutes earlier. She wore a tailored coat that probably cost more than his entire truck, and diamond earrings that caught what little light pushed through the storm clouds. And yet, she looked completely broken. "I can't go," she whispered, shaking her head. "They'll never forgive me this time." Daniel kept his eyes on the road. "Ma'am, you collapsed in front of my shop. You need a hospital, not forgiveness." He'd been closing up for the night when he saw her. She'd stepped out of a black luxury car parked crookedly by the curb, swayed once, and would have hit the pavement if he hadn't caught her. Her driver had been shouting into a phone, arguing with someone on the other end instead of helping her. Now that same car was following behind them, headlights cutting through the rain. "I'm not some helpless rich woman," she said suddenly, anger breaking through her fear. "I don't need saving." Daniel didn't answer. He just turned the pickup onto a side road that would get them to the small county hospital faster than the main highway, which was always clogged this time of evening. "You don't have to save people to be decent," he said quietly. "Sometimes you just drive." The hospital lights glowed like a promise in the distance. Inside the emergency room, everything smelled like antiseptic and tired hope. Nurses moved quickly, recognizing trouble without needing words. They laid Evelyn onto a gurney, asking questions she barely answered. Daniel tried to step back and vanish into the wall, the way he always did in places he didn't belong. "Sir, are you family?" one nurse asked. "No, ma'am," Daniel said. "Just helped her get here." The nurse nodded, already moving on. Daniel sat in a plastic chair in the waiting room, staring at the floor so long he could count every tiny crack in the tiles. He thought about his daughter, Emma, probably asleep on the couch at home with her cartoons still playing. He'd promised he wouldn't be late. He always promised that. After what felt like hours, a doctor stepped out. "She's stable," the doctor said. But she had a stress-induced fainting episode. Severe exhaustion, dehydration. She's been running herself into the ground. Daniel let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Can she have a visitor?" The doctor nodded. Briefly, Evelyn looked smaller in the hospital bed. Without the sharp confidence she'd worn like armor, she looked like someone who had been tired for a very long time. "You stayed," she said softly when she saw him. "Couldn't just leave," Daniel replied. "Not how I was raised." She turned her head toward the window. "My board wanted me to fly to New York tonight. Crisis meeting. Investors panicking. Stocks dropping. They said if I didn't show up in person, they'd vote to remove me as CEO." Daniel blinked. He'd suspected she was rich. He hadn't expected that. "And you?" he asked. "I told them I couldn't go," she said, voice breaking. "First time I ever said no. They called me dramatic, weak." Daniel leaned back in the chair. "You blacked out standing up. That's not weakness." She looked at him, really looked at him, as if she was only now noticing the man with oil under his nails and worry carved into his face. "Why did you help me?" she asked. He thought about it for a long second. "My wife passed 3 years ago. Collapse. Aneurysm. She asked for help. People thought she was just being dramatic too." His voice got rough. "I don't ignore people who ask for help." Silence settled between them, heavy but honest. The blackout happened again 2 nights later. Daniel was under the hood of a broken-down sedan when he saw the black luxury car pull up to his shop. This time, there were no bodyguards, no driver shouting into a phone. Only Evelyn, sitting in the back seat, staring straight ahead. She stepped out slowly when he approached. "They told me to fire my driver," she said. "And half my staff. Cut insurance. No time off. No weakness." Daniel wiped his hands on a rag. "What do you want to do?" She looked at the tiny, cracked waiting bench by the shop and shrugged. "I want to understand how people live without everything." So he showed her. He showed her how to hold a wrench. How to listen to an engine like it was telling a story. He let her sit on an upturned crate and watch him work, grease smearing the sleeves of her perfect coat. For the first time, she laughed without sound, doubling his pressure. A week later, a black SUV parked outside the hospital again. But this time, it was Daniel inside it. Emma's school nurse had called him. His daughter had collapsed during recess. Fever. Dizzy. Same word the doctors had used for his wife. By the time he reached the hospital, his hands were shaking so badly he could barely sign the paperwork. And for the first time in his life, Daniel heard his own voice break in public. "I can't lose her," he told the nurse. "I can't go through that again." He felt a hand on his shoulder. Evelyn stood behind him. "I came as fast as I could," she said. He hadn't called her. She just came. She sat beside him. She made phone calls without shouting. Somehow, the best pediatric specialist in the county was in the room within minutes. After hours of fear, the doctor smiled. "It's a severe viral infection. She'll be fine. A few days of rest." Daniel leaned forward, elbows on knees, and cried in a way he hadn't let himself cry since the funeral. Outside the hospital, the world felt different. Evelyn took a deep breath. "You know," she said, "my board voted to remove me while I was here today." Daniel frowned. "I'm sorry." She smiled sadly. "I'm not." She looked at him, and this time, there were no diamonds, no sharp edges, no boardrooms behind her eyes. Only a woman who had almost lost everything and discovered what mattered. "They offered me a choice," she said. "Fight to get the title back, or walk away with what I've already earned." "And?" he asked. "I walked," she said. "I told them I wasn't going." Daniel nodded once. "Good." Weeks passed. She kept coming by the shop. He kept fixing cars. Emma started calling her Miss Eve, and drawing pictures for her on the backs of old invoices. One afternoon, as sunlight turned the oil stains on the concrete into gold, Evelyn handed Daniel an envelope. "I bought your building," she said calmly. "Not to change it, not to turn it into something fancy." He stiffened. "I don't want charity." She held up a hand. "Not charity, partnership." Inside the envelope were papers for a small community garage and learning center. A place where kids without money could learn real skills. A place where single parents could bring their cars without fear of being cheated. "This is yours," she said. "I just funded it." Daniel looked at the papers, then at her. "For what?" he asked. "For the night I said, I can't go, and you didn't let me die on the sidewalk," she said softly. Emma ran out of the back room and wrapped her arms around his leg. "Daddy, is Miss Eve staying for dinner?" she asked. Evelyn laughed. It was warm, real. Daniel looked at the two people who'd somehow changed his life without meaning to. "Yeah," he said at last. "I think she is." And for the first time in a very long time, everything didn't feel broken anymore.